You have to set yourself apart in some way because you're right now you're like a drop in the ocean of artists. Just look on Instagram. But yeah, I mean, I love the the academic style, but there's a lot of people doing it. But you got to make yours different. I like to make mine somewhat different in some way. So that's you got to figure that out.
Welcome to the FASO podcast, where we believe that fortune favors a bold brush. My name is Laura Bayer, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. To start off the season, we sat down with fine artist and former software developer Maureen Dunlap. Maureen shares how a childhood immersed in traditional oil painting, guided by mentor Arthur Maynard, eventually wound its way through typography, photo typesetting, and front-end development before circling back to a full-time art career. Maureen talks about rebuilding her painting practice after years away, moving from fast alla prima pieces to highly detailed indirect paintings that draw on Art Nouveau, Art Deco, Pre-Raphaelite, and Baroque influences. She describes her richly layered seascapes, lace-draped still lifes, and narrative figurative works that often live in ornate vintage or trompe-l'oeil frames, all infused with her whimsical titles and maximalist sensibility. Maureen also opens up about the realities of being a full-time artist later in life, balancing joy and financial stability, diversifying income with small works and jewelry, navigating social media and online sales, and her growing desire to teach the next generation of painters, reminding us all to set yourself apart as an artist. Finally, Maureen tells us about her upcoming group show in the main hallway of Golden Belt Arts in Durham, North Carolina, running October through December. Welcome, Maureen, to the FASO podcast. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because the first thing, of course, that I notice when I see your work is how absolutely gorgeous it is. I love your reinterpretation of that Art Nouveau style, and it just feels like you have a very whimsical personality.
I do. I do. My
Oh,
friends
well,
will tell you that.
yeah, and I love that so much. So I'm excited to talk to you about that because maybe there's someone out there who feels a little bit shy, and it's okay to be whimsical. It's totally okay to be whimsical.
Oh yeah.
Let it out in your work because, there's more to life. Be free. But yeah, but before we talk more about your gorgeous work, do you mind telling us a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, first I was an artist at age 10. Then I became a mom. Then I became a software developer, then an artist and crafter. So those are the steps. There was a period in my life of maybe 15 years when I didn't even pick up a brush. But yeah, so that was a little challenging. I, like you said, I like to be whimsical. I have a good sense of humor. I usually let it out at the most inappropriate times. And I really enjoyed uh, doing that with when I name my paintings. I try to think of something different to name them. Just you have to try to set yourself apart. Um, so anyway, yeah, I'll do that. I'll show you some of my work because I have my iPad. I can reverse it and show you around the room. I'm in my studio right now. Um, let's see. So I began my journey when, like I said, I was 10 years old. My mother sent me I lived in New Jersey. She took me to the Ridgewood Art Association, which is now called the Ridgewood Art Institute. And I started taking young people's lessons, mostly learning still life, learning how to use oil paints. And they had a very set curriculum or methodology of teaching art because the founder of the Art Institute, the Art Association, at the time it was called the Barn because it was actually in a big barn. And the upstairs of the barn had, the gabled roof and also skylights on the north side. So that man that started it, his name was Arthur Maynard. He later became my teacher. as when I was a young adult after high school. He studied with Frank Vincent Dumond of the Art Students League in New York. So he's a pretty prestigious guy, but he basically taught me everything I know. His main focus was not how to paint, but why. Like, why are we painting something a certain way? He was a big proponent of natural light, prismatic palette. He would basically talk about the way light hits an object and why it looks a certain way. In other words, you're not painting this apple, you're painting the light that's hitting the apple. And it was very, very scientific in a way, which it appealed to me. So I started, doing a lot of still lifes and also a lot of portraits. When I became, a teenager, and after high school, I studied there for 3 years before moving on to art school, college. And during those 3 years, it was portraits, how to do portraits. And I became a portrait painter. I really enjoyed doing that. I still love doing portraits. And I became pretty good at it. I mean, I was able to start doing commissions in my 20s. So, that was fun. I started thinking, like, why doesn't everybody do this? This is like really easy for me because I already know the scientific reason for why things look a certain way. I know that, there's more blood in the nose and the cheeks than there is in the chin and the forehead. I mean, there's just all this stuff that's just so interesting. So then I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, which is in Philadelphia. And when I got there, it started out very classical. We didn't even start painting the first semester. It was cast drawing, going into these rooms full of these statues and trying to draw those exactly right. But when it came to painting, they would just put up a model and turn on all the fluorescent lights. I was horrified. I'm like, what? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Nobody said anything. I was like, nobody's noticing this? I was just like in my own world there. So I was like, okay, I'll do my best. And that became a challenge. And then during critiques, the teachers were just not interested in teaching traditional painting. It was the age of abstract expressionism. This is back in the 70s. And so I kind of got disillusioned there and decided I need to go get some other skills where I can get a job. There was the Art Institute of Philadelphia right down the street from where the academy was. And I enrolled there for illustration, typography, graphic design, layout, all those kind of things that were used like in print shops and magazines, newspapers, things that, is also creative. And I thought, this is fine. I mean, I can still paint my own stuff in my own way, but I can also get a job. So I did do that. I became actually a photo typesetter. Back in that day, it was before, WYSIWYG and the internet was not even there. And so I was learning typesetting. At the time was a ginormous machine the size of the room and a black screen, no WYSIWYG. It was like typing in code. And I thought, oh, this is cool, because I always liked puzzles. I liked, anything that you could have to try to figure out. And those typesetting machines were really complex as far as they had a lot of keys on the keyboard for leading, secondary leading, style, justification, all this stuff. And you had to type the code. And when it prints out, you say, okay, I did something wrong here. And you go back and fix the code. So that became the impetus for me in the 90s to learn how to code for the internet. I thought this is a piece of cake because I was looking at those the internet code, the HTML, and I thought, this is so easy. I started my own little web design business. And at that time, I had kids, and I thought, I'm really going like in a totally different direction here, but it's still kind of similar. It's adjacent to what I like to do, but I like doing that too. So eventually, I got better at doing that. Cut to the year 2000, I got hired at Cisco Systems here in North Carolina to work on their intranet. And that was like a huge experience, a huge company with a lot of people and very complex systems. And that was a challenge. Again, another big challenge. So that I stayed there for 11 years. And then there was a layoff because, you always get caught up in these layoffs. So I had to go to another small company. And after that, it was like two or three small companies, which were really sweet and nice and comfortable with like 5 or 6 people in the company. I love that as opposed to 70,000 people worldwide. So I got hired as a front end developer, which is basically writing code on the back end to make the front end look good. So in other words, it's like making art on the front of a computer. Another very complicated, not too complicated really, but very creative endeavor. So all in all, I was doing that kind of work for about 20 years. And then in 2018, I get laid off from my final company. And I was already like 65 or 63, something like that. And my boyfriend and I took a trip to Europe for a couple of weeks. When I came back, suddenly COVID hits. So I thought, well, I'll just go in my spare bedroom at home and paint. Got nothing else to do. I joined Daily Paintworks. I sold a bunch of little tiny, ocean paintings. I started doing my own still lifes. I didn't have a good window. Let me take a drink. So I would set up these still lifes and buy a bunch of silk flowers because we didn't have any real flowers, and I didn't want to, you can reuse the silk flowers and just paint them to look real. So I would do that, and then I would take that photo and bring it into a photo editing app on my computer because I'm very tech savvy now. And like if I had 2 or 3 peonies, I could copy and paste and make 7 or 8 peonies. So I could do a background of something that wasn't really there. And a shadow, and I would just really compose the picture, pixel perfect, and then use that as my reference for a bunch of my still lifes. And about that time, I did sign up with FASO. And I actually started selling my work. I don't know how people found me, but a few people like out in Colorado and around the country would purchase these flower paintings. And I also had a bunch of friends on Facebook. That became a very good selling opportunity for me because I would just post my paintings and I'd get these messages, how much do you want for it? And I'd sell those paintings. So I'm thinking, this is awesome. But I kind of got tired of being in my own little room. And so I had found out about this studio space where I work now, which is Golden Belt Arts, and it's in Durham, North Carolina, in the downtown area. And we have 25 different art studios. Most of them are this size, which is 12 by 12. Not very big, but still you're working with other artists. But even though that's the case, they didn't have very many people here because of COVID. So there were just like a skeleton crew kind of, and I felt like safe there because there's hardly anyone here. I'm in my own little room, and everybody was trying to like prevent from getting COVID. And so this place has a lot of a few studios that are the prime studios with skylights and open tops. And there was one available, and I was able to move into this one. Now that's, it's all different now. People are battling to get these, and I was really lucky that that happened at that time. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this long rambling question that you asked me, but basically that's where I am now. As far as my style, I kind of got a little tired of the flower paint. Not tired, but I wanted to do something else. And I began to do a lot of seascapes, ocean paintings. You might have seen them on my website. I sold so many of those. And I really wanted to make it so realistic that the person felt like they were in the water. So I would find these pictures online of ocean waves with like the sun coming through the water, and just really ham it up with my paintings. And I wanted, I usually didn't put a beach. I would put it like just the wave. And those, I had my whole studio was full of waves at that time. So that was a fun period for me. Then I decided, let me try something else. And I thought, what is it that will set me apart? What can I do that other people aren't doing? I mean, that's a challenge for artists that are trying to promote their work. I can still do still lifes, and I do. I started getting portrait commissions, which are really excellent. But I thought, let me back up a little bit. When I first came in here and started oil painting again, I was really rusty at first after years and years of not painting. And the paintings were just not good. I'm like, oh my God, I've lost my touch. So I took me a little while. Eventually, I was back on the saddle, as they say. And I realized that when I was first taught to paint, we would always paint alla prima. And I love that style. It's fresh and easy and just really can be very beautiful. However, I ended up accumulating a lot of work because I was fast and I could do a painting a day. And I thought, this is not sustainable because I got to buy more canvas, more paint. Let me slow down, see how far can I take it. And I started doing research about indirect painting, doing it under painting, doing, the next layer. And I thought, okay, this is something new and different. And I decided to challenge myself to see how far can I take a painting. Like I can do this vase on a tablecloth with the flowers, but let me put a lace tablecloth and really try to get into those details. And I just decided this is it. I'm in the zone. I could be here all day and it would just be so much fun trying to make everything picture perfect. And people started really commenting like, wow, how, they'll come in here and say, everything just pops, the colors. And that's because I try to, first of all, I use the full value range. I stay in the middle range at first, block in with just a very mid-tone of everything. Then, I start adding more darks and more lights and just building out the form the way I was taught by Arthur Maynard. And I would start putting in really, really dark darks and really bright brights. And the colors, I say, how intense can I make this red dress or this, whatever the color was? And so I would push it as high as I could to really make it like a form. So it's the contrast and the vibrancy of the colors that really makes things pop. And I have to explain that to people. They say, how do you do it? How do you do it? Well, it's not that hard. It's just, you got to get out of that middle zone. I see a lot of painters that I feel like they're kind of afraid to use black on their palette. which a lot of people say, oh, never use black on your palette, but that's like one of my main colors to make something go back and make something come forward. And that's for indoor paint, not for outdoors, because when you go back, you have to use gray things out. But so that's it. And I started deciding I love these nostalgic art movements like Art Nouveau, Art Deco, Mucha, Maxfield Parrish, Sargent, and the Baroque period where it was all this gold stuff, the Pre-Raphaelites. I mean, I started taking ideas from those things, and that's been a big, very popular thing for me. I try to find these ornate picture frames to go with them. That's really hard to find, but I find some of them on Facebook Marketplace, which usually they're mirrors. I have to knock the mirror out and take the frame. But yeah, people comment on that all the time, like those frames. I love the frame. And so I've just loved this environment. I'm a maximalist. I'm not a minimalist person. My house is like that too. I overdo everything. It's like, why do when you can overdo, right? Um, in fact, one of my paintings is called "Too Much Is Never Enough." So
Love that.
I just have fun with it. This I'm starting a new series right now, which is based on the Pre-Raphaelites. It's a series of 4 paintings, and it's going to be the women doing serene activities like reading a book, and it's all with a lot of flowers around it. And of course, I like to do flowers too, and I like to do people. So that's kind of a thing I'm working on. I did one series a couple years ago of based on Mucha. I did my own interpretation of like the 4 seasons. So I did a winter one, which was basically the Snow Queen, and then spring, summer, fall. And I had all 4 of them in a grid on my wall, and somebody bought all 4 of them. That was like my biggest. I was like, oh my God. I was so excited. So I really like the idea of having one painting talk to the next and creating an environment like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can happen where someone sees the set and they're like, I can't separate the set. That would be awful. We got to take all of them, and
Girls
they
got to
can
stay
afford it.
together.
Yes, they have to stick together. Yeah, and then you mentioned, when you got back into painting and you said that, it was kind of tough at first because you kind of, were rusty.
Yeah,
What's something you did that really helped you get back into the zone?
I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad paintings. Started really focusing on my compositions better. Um, and again, slowing down because the first pass of a painting can look horrible. I mean, you can block in a painting and a lot of people think, well, that's it. I guess I'm not a good painter because it looks like a kid did this. Well, yes, it does, but you got to have that under layer. That's your underpainting. So you can pretty much, I mean, if you have decent composition, you can save a lot of the work that you think is no good.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Um, and I have struggled with that too, where it's like you have like 4 things down. It's like this is the worst thing I've ever done.
I know.
It's like, yeah, because you haven't finished, right? You haven't developed it. So
Exactly.
I like that you mentioned that because that also invites a little bit more of like empathy with yourself and slowing down that hypercriticism, which is something that most artists tend to have. We tend to be very, very critical of our work. We tend to hold
Yes,
ourselves to like a standard that's like so extreme that sometimes I'm like, "Nah, who even reaches that standard?"
I know. And it's like, can I save this? I
Yeah.
want to have this painting done, but what do I have to do? You really have to contemplate it. Sometimes you put it down for a while, start something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And be kind to yourself about it too, because it's not
Yeah.
it's not worth breaking yourself down because then you're not gonna want to paint ever again.
And
Um,
even, some paintings that I have spent a lot of time on, still I don't like them. So It doesn't happen that often, but you don't have to do every one of them not everyone's going to be a masterpiece.
Yes, yeah, and that's the reality. I think a lot of painters, majority of painters, have like the either a burn pile or paintings that they
Yeah.
set aside to look at later to see if they can recycle the canvas or maybe continue on it because those are some options. But yeah, and then I wanted to ask you also, since you did software development, is there anything specific from software development, like maybe like the procedure that you did or anything that you find yourself kind of reflecting a bit when you work on your creative work, or is it totally different? Is there like
It's
no?
not totally different. Um, the coding, of course, probably doesn't really translate, but I did also do quite a bit of like photo editing, video editing. So in that respect, you know, social media, of course, the bane of everyone's existence, trying to, find the time to make these reels and these photos. So for me, that's once I do get into doing that, I really enjoy that too. Like I'll make some videos and really enjoy it, but then that's like a day I spent doing that.
Yeah.
So, but that's easier for me than it is for other people, especially people my age that just like, oh, I don't know how to use a computer. Or I don't, can you help me figure this out? You know, I'm always happy to help people, but um, yeah, those kind of things, maybe the persistence, because I would have to make sure I got the job done of what I was trying to make work. So I had to do a lot of research and redoing and that kind of thing made me be, a very attention to detail, which is critical in software development. And I find that I'm very detail oriented now in my painting.
If you've been enjoying the podcast and also want to ask our guests live questions, then you might want to join our monthly webinar, The FASO Show, where our guest artists discuss marketing tips, share inspiring stories, and answer your burning questions in real time. Whether you're a seasoned painter or just starting your creative journey, this is your chance to connect, learn, and spark new ideas. And whether you're stuck on a canvas or building your creative business, this is where breakthroughs happen. Don't miss out. Ignite your passion and transform your art practice by joining us. Our next FASO Show webinar is coming up on the 16th of July with our special guest, Vladislav Yeliseyev. You can find a sign up link in the show notes. Yeah, because I mean, if you have to hunt down a tiny mistake in code, you
Yeah,
have to be
right.
really, really specific. Yeah, and it's good that, I mean, with painting, it's definitely a lot of, general to specific. And it's some specific things that can make or break a painting sometimes, or just improve it. And it's those tiny improvements over time that make it even better.
Yes. And you learn every time you're going, oh, this is something I did last time. Don't make that mistake again. So yeah, I do like experimenting a lot with, these different styles. And I, I started using a couple of things like gold leaf. But can I show you some of these
Of course.
pictures? Let's see if I can get this. So I started doing these two. This is like my interpretation of tablecloths. And so this is a lace tablecloth, obviously. And it took me a long time to do this painting, which is really time consuming to do all these little tiny lace things. Um, then I decided to do tablecloth. Oh, and these tablecloths are all vintage. So this one was one that my mother had. The tablecloth is really red, not blue, but I changed the color on the computer to blue just for difference. And this is called Hungover. And I put these little knobs on the ends of the curtain rod and the wainscoting. I built these little things on the side.
Looks so real.
Um, yeah, this is called Crumple. And I had some others, but I needed wall space, so I had to take some down. This is a recent one. And again, I found this frame, which I love the Art Deco style of that. This is another recent one called Molten Sunlight. And I know you could see these in the background, but the two women at the top, again, I would love for someone to buy those both. These are another set of frames that I got, but I wanted to make paintings to go in them. Here's my Muka tapestry idea. I put a rod at the top with the tassels hanging down. This pink one is called Party Girl, and it's one of my favorites, and I just really love the color. Then I did this one is called Rendezvous, which I like to make up these stories of like these birds got into the house somehow and having a secret rendezvous. It's like, I don't know. And they're, of course, fantasy. I took regular birds and changed the colors. Here's another experiment I did with her. I tried doing like a collage background and painted her on top of it, which I like the painting, but if you look close, you can see all the seams in the paper, and I'm not sure I love that, but it is what it is. Here's a magnolia, which one of my favorite flowers. Oh my God, the smell and fragrance. I did a lot of magnolias, a series of them. Just whenever I don't have anything to paint, I'll do a magnolia. This is another woman that's kind of made up with the Muka theme. Now on this one, all those leaves at the top of her head, I had a hard time trying to figure out where to place them. So I cut out paper and kind of tacked them on there, and then took each one off and painted it. And I actually tried to make them look like paper because I thought that was kind of cool. This painting is called Blessed Be the Hair Volume. Because I was really trying to do the study of that blonde hair. There's another Muka-esque one called The Age of Wonder. And this is where I used some gold leaf around the border. Not easy to handle that stuff. Have you ever tried it?
I have. It's tough.
It is tough. And again, here's another rose, kind of like a 3D popping out of the oval. I didn't have a frame, so I painted a frame on the side of the canvas. Here's one of my oceanscapes. And this here is my latest series I'm working on that I mentioned, which is going to be called the Dreaming Season. This one here is pretty much done. And this one's kind of done, but this one and that one are still to be completed. So, that's given me something to do for a while. And then I have some family portraits here. My two daughters. This is my son, who sadly passed away. And that's my boyfriend, Daniel. So that's my studio.
Oh, beautiful work. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Work. I really
you.
love the Dreaming Ladies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, and the painted frame on the pink flowers, like I would have thought it was a real frame. You're very good at like
Yeah.
the trompe-l'oeil style, which is
Yeah, I love doing that.
really
If you don't have one, just make it up.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, you got the power of creation in your hands. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And then I also wanted to ask you a bit about what it was like for you when you decided to just go full time as an artist. Like, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was exciting, but also a little scary. Luckily for me, I was able to um, start collecting Social Security. I'm an old lady, so I had a couple of years where I was like trying to make ends meet, but then that kicked in and I was all good. I also, had 401k and stuff. So I feel a little bit financially secure. I say a little bit. You never know what's going to happen. But yeah, so I'm sorry, what was the question? How did
What the experience was like when you became a full-time
oh yeah,
artist.
so very scary, but also very freeing
Mhm.
because I'm like, now, I mean, I'm retired. I can do whatever I want. I don't even have to come here if I don't want to. But of course I want to. I want to stay, I'm busy every second. So aside from this, I also have a home studio where I do a lot of crafting. Because you know what's funny? Once you become a full-time painter, suddenly it becomes a job. And you're like, I gotta take a day off. You know, I feel obligated to do this, even though I love it. So it's kind of hard. You have to make time like for work-life balance. Um, I want to spend time at home with my boyfriend. We also have two parrots that need attention. So I got to be home with those guys. Um, yeah, so I'm very busy. I also, belong to a Spanish group because we meet every Friday. We've been doing Spanish for about 15 years, my boyfriend and I. So that's fun. I go to the gym sometimes, but it's, I don't know what other people do when they aren't working anymore. I mean, I have a lot of friends from high school that I guess I don't know what they do. I mean, maybe they go out to lunch or read a book or something very relaxing kind of lifestyle, which sounds nice. So maybe that's great for them. Wouldn't be good for me.
Yeah.
I feel constantly like I'm battling against time, like I have to leave a legacy. But then again, what am I going to do with all this stuff at the end? I mean, I think about that stuff. I don't mean to be morbid, but I guess doesn't matter. It'll be what it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people as as they age and they grow in their career, I think we start thinking about those things.
Mhm.
And I think I could probably confidently say that it touches someone, and that's what matters, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it is kind of morbid to think about though. It's like, oh man, what
Yeah,
am I
but
doing
that's
all this
life,
for?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's you can't take them with you.
No.
Um, I think I'm going to start doing more oceans again pretty soon. As soon as I finish this series, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. No, and I think it's also one of those things where the moment you kind of start, because you mentioned, you make jewelry as well. But I feel like
Yes.
also the moment that you start opening yourself up to more creative things, suddenly you start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you're
Um,
like, oh my God, now I want to try this craft over here because I
yes,
have an
I'm
idea.
always thinking about the next thing I'm going to make. I see something beautiful and I need to recreate it in some form. Like I have this idea, like even this Art Deco necklace. I just finished this actually this morning.
Gorgeous.
And I have a website I just set up for my jewelry,
Nice.
and I can give you that URL if you want later. I'll send it to you. Um, but yeah, I just love working with my hands.
Mhm.
I also fix a lot of things around the house. I do gardening. I've got this. It's like you could work every second and never get everything done.
Yeah, pretty much. That's I
Yeah,
feel like there's never enough time sometimes.
it's not. Time is
Yeah.
our enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I also wanted to ask because, there are a lot of aspects of being an artist that can be pretty challenging. But for you, what has been the hardest thing about being a full-time artist that you haven't really heard mentioned?
Well, like I said, it's the thing I'm worried about is just having too much stuff. And where am I going to put it? I mean, that sounds a little silly, but my house is full. This place is full. I mean, I again, I slow down and I go home and I start making small things. I even started making little tiny. paintings, thinking, well, they're not going to take up a lot of room. You got to be practical. And, that's another thing too with sales. It's good to have things at various price points. I mean, people don't usually come in with $1,000 in their pocket to buy a big painting.
Mhm.
So, make some $20 items or, that's, and I would say that's true for even people working at their home studios. You know, you, the daily paint works that I used to do was really good for me. Every painting I put on there for a while was selling. Then it dried up, so I thought, never mind. But you again, you have to set yourself apart in some way because you're right now you're like a drop in the ocean of artists. Just look on Instagram or Pinterest. I get a lot of really cool ideas from looking at Pinterest, inspiration. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love the the academic style, but there's a lot of people doing it. But you got to make yours different. I like to make mine somewhat different in some way. So that's you got to figure that out.
Yeah. Yes, what makes you you, which is, I feel like that's another life journey that just changes over time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also wanted to ask because you have, taken on commissions and you've sold some work in the past.
yeah.
How did you find those first, buyers or collectors? Was it word of mouth? Was it?
So as I said, well, face, Facebook was a gold mine for me for a while till like the economy got kind of bad. But FASO at first was good. I don't really know how you guys do it, but people were finding my work. Basically, it was mostly my flower still life. So maybe I should go back to that. Um, those would be snapped up quite often. So I would get that person, and then word of mouth. I also had some work um, at the North Carolina Museum of Art when they had they have an annual flower show, Art in Bloom, and I put some stuff in their gift shop and sold them. So you got to find kind of like these places. I don't want to be in a gallery, really. That's something we should never talked about, but I don't want to give 50% of my money to a gallery. Um, or, you would have to double your price or whatever, which then makes it, you know, unreachable for some people. Now that could change. I say that, but I also don't want to really be beholden to a place that even if I'm here, I have to charge what they would charge because of the contract that they use, unless they're really far away. Um, what else? Oh, yeah. So people come in here, not as many as we would like, but a few times a person would come in and just randomly just buy a painting. So that, of course, is great. I've had some work in restaurants that, you know, rotate the artwork on their walls. Those are good ways to sell. Um, I don't know. I don't know how else. I mean, I guess obviously Instagram, social media, which is so hard. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that's changing a lot as well. I think there are less people on social media. I think a lot of people are appreciating much more the in real life uh 3D experiences. I think a lot of people are probably going much more to like outside of their house places. We're all getting a little bit tired of the internet.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I did a art festival, outdoor festival where you set up a tent and all this. That was a lot of work for paintings like this, like to schlep them all over there and hang them up on a grid and take them all home because nobody bought them. So, I think the crafting is probably the the way that you can make a little more small increments of money if you come up with your own groove on those things. But it's a battle. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy.
No, yeah. Yeah, I mean, being an artist is like being an entrepreneur, but it's also like a little different because you don't have like one singular product to
Yeah.
sell to people. You make very unique products. Nothing is the same unless you literally make the same painting but as prints. That's like the only exception.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's another thing. I don't have a lot of luck selling prints. I did sell prints of my four Muka women,
Mhm.
but the issue I have with doing prints is like a lot of my work is when it's shrunken down to a print, it looks kind of like a photo of something. And it doesn't make sense. Why would you buy that? Like I have a friend who is a wildlife painter and he'll paint like certain animals that people like, so they buy his prints a lot. So that's, you have to have a niche that's suitable for
Mm.
prints.
Yeah, I agree. I think selling prints can be really hard unless it's like a painting that's just really beloved. That
Yeah, yeah,
someone
yeah.
might be like, "Oh my gosh, I could have sold this like 50 times," type of painting.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's the other hard part. Which I think that's one of the conveniences of like if you do sell prints, just not having them pre-printed and having like a buy to print type of situation, I think is also a little bit more convenient.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then I also wanted to ask if you have any final advice for someone who wants to become a full-time artist.
Good luck. Um, you need to have, I think, I don't know that you can jump in right away and assume you can make a living. You better have another source of income and start slowly. But, again, set yourself apart in some way. Try to have a subject matter or a style that is different. Um, and then join FASO. That's really been a good thing for me. And your social media, but again, I don't know, you're a drop in the ocean. These artists are, that's how I feel. It's I love, love, love doing it. And so I do it for love, not for money. So I would do it anyway. I would pay to do it. Actually, I do pay to do it. I have to pay for all this stuff in this room. But yeah, I I love to see like a young artist that's or a young person that wants to learn and do this. I'm considering teaching, possibly. I haven't ever done that, but it's on my radar. I might do some videos, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you got to think of other ways to get money to live.
Yes. Yeah, especially as an artist.
Yeah,
It's like you gotta wear all the hats, diversify that income, and level out that economic support and stability because if you don't,
yeah,
it can really I mean, probably not for everyone out there. I think some people really thrive in stressful situations, but I know in my case, I don't think I would be able to focus on painting if I was constantly worried about I can't pay my bills this month.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be so stressful, and that's going to show it. Excuse me, show in your work. So you want to get to a point where you're doing it with joy and you're in the zone and you don't care if your place is a huge mess because you're in the flow state. So that's kind of me. My home craft studio, it's like a bomb went off in there. And I don't care. That's how I work. I clean it up in between, but it's just the way it is. It's nature of the beast.
Yes, the art bomb.
Yes,
The creating bomb. Yeah, I totally relate. It's like I can't focus on cleaning. I gotta go fix this person's face on my painting really quick.
exactly.
Or like finish
What's more
painting this.
important?
Yeah, like and then it gets cleaned up. I mean, it gives you something to like
Yeah,
do after you're done. Almost like
Yes.
it's almost like a cleansing ritual afterward. We're like, okay, now I can clear out the old energy of this painting and then have a fresh start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask you if someone wants to see your work in person or if they want to see more of your work, where can they go?
So if they're local to North Carolina, they can come to Durham to my studio in the Golden Belt Arts Building. I'm Studio 9. I can, let's see, I mean, outside of in person, I've got all the different socials. I Some of them I don't use for painting, so it's more just ranting and raving. So but my Instagram, I have 2 Instagram sites now, and my Facebook page, which really I don't post a lot of my art anymore on Facebook since I've got the Instagram and the FASO. So um, also we're having a group show here in the main hallway of this complex between October and December. So that's another thing. I don't really have anything else planned at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. But I'm guessing, someone can go to your website, which
Absolutely.
do you mind telling us what your website is?
MaureenDunlap.com.
Perfect.
And also I have the Wonder Cabinet, which is my jewelry store. It's brand new, so it's Wonder-Cabinet. And I'm still working on that. Every time I make something, I put it up. So there's that. And I've been battling the technology to try to get my Instagram page for that to show the product so people can shop on Instagram. I mean, some people do it, but my God, it's so hard. It's so hard to get all these things in Meta working and approved, and I spent weeks with that. Still not working right.
Yeah, it's one of those things with the way that the landscape of how social media has changed because I think before it
Yeah.
was so much easier to shop from Instagram. um
Yes.
than now it feels like you got to pay more or you got to become like you got to just do all this verification stuff that
Yeah, get the check mark.
yeah, which I understand because there's
Yeah.
scammers out there, but people are still getting scammed anyway. Like
I know it makes no sense. It doesn't mean you're not a
yeah.
scammer. You just have to pay $15 a month to have a check mark.
Oh yeah, no, but I mean like people who do like they get the check mark but they're actually scammers. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. It just
Yeah.
costs money. That's all you can.
Oh yeah.
They're scamming you.
Yeah. No, it's yeah.
I know it's there. I have that on my Maureen J. Dunlap is my Instagram painting site, and I do have the check mark there. Um, I don't know that it does anything, but
Well, we try what we can. I
I know
mean,
you got to try all
yeah.
these things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maureen, for the very whimsical conversation.
Well, thank
Um,
you so much. I was looking forward to this.
yeah, me too. And I do hope you consider teaching because I think you would probably be a very fun teacher to learn from.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I love, sometimes I get young people, like 20-year-old young adults coming in asking me questions, and I love explaining the technical aspects of how to do this. So I'm really thinking about taking on some students.
Heck yeah, why not?
Why not?
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Laura. I really, really enjoyed this
of
conversation.
course, me too. Thank you to everyone out there for listening to the podcast. Your continued support means a lot to us. If you've enjoyed the episode, please leave a review for the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or leave us a comment on YouTube. This helps us reach others who might also benefit from the excellent advice that our guests provide. Thank you.